The first one to come and to give the first presentation is Lina Eklund, who has a PhD in physical geography and ecosystem analysis from Lund University. You finished your PhD in 2015 on population mobility and land dynamics in Iraqi Kurdistan. And for that very topical and cutting-edge PhD thesis, you were receiving actually a reward. And your current research is focusing on land systems and conflict, and also the links to drought, land use, change, migration, and conflict, and particularly to Syria and Iraq. Here you will give a talk about making sense of the IPCC's climate report and future. So, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Karin. All right. So, let's talk about climate change in the Middle East. I was asked to give a title, and I wrote Drier, wetter, or both, because it's, well, that might be a simplification, actually. But we're trying to make sense of what the IPCC's climate report says about the Middle East. And this map that I'm showing you, it's a map of the world, obviously, but you can see there's a circle around the Middle East area, depending on how you define it and how you, what borders you are looking at. And you can see that most of it is red. This is the climate that's called arid climate. It's a very dry climate. But there are also some Mediterranean climate areas and some semi-arid areas. Just to give an idea of the current situation, if there's ever anything that's current. So the IPCC climate report, the 6th assessment report, came out in August this year. And that's the part that's the physical science basis that looks at climate change. What kind of changes are we expecting in terms of biophysical changes? There are also other parts of the report, and the next one that will come out is more focused on societal changes or effects on humans. But this one, today I'm focusing on the biophysical changes. And in that report, there's a lot of talk about confidence. What can we say with confidence? Does the literature agree? And is there enough evidence for a certain fact or a statement or a claim? Also, there's no Middle East in this report. If you search Middle East, you won't really find anything. You find other types of regions. So I put together the regions that I think are relevant for the Middle East. And those are the Mediterranean region, the Arabian Peninsula, and the West Central Asia. So you can see in the map there that they cover at least parts of the Middle East, depending on how you define it, because there's no clear definition, obviously. Brief summary then, what the report actually says about climate change in the Middle East. And this is probably no surprises here. In terms of temperature, there will be more frequent extreme heat events in all these 3 regions, so in all of the Middle East. We might cross dangerous heat stress thresholds with a temperature of above 41 degrees Celsius. And on the other side of that, we will have less cold spells, or they're less likely to happen. And this goes for the whole region. Then when it comes to rainfall, there are more uncertainty and varying projections. We see a decrease in precipitation in the Mediterranean, but the Arabian Peninsula and the West Central Asia regions are more uncertain. We actually do see some more heavy precipitation to be likely to happen in West Central Asia. So, as you can see, they're both, in some ways, it's getting drier, but there are also going to be more extreme rainfall events. Some slower processes that are relevant to look at. You will see an increase in aridity especially in West Central Asia and Mediterranean. I'm not sure if you can increase aridity in an already very arid area, which is probably why most research is focused on these areas that are not, not already belonging to the arid class. Coastal erosion, we will see that many coastal areas will be eroded and shorelines will retreat by between 50 and 300 meters, depending on what region. So Mediterranean 50 meters, West Central Asia, which would be then the Persian part of the Gulf area, and the Arabian Peninsula would probably be the Arabian part of the Gulf area. And I've written here that it's under the RCP 4.5, which is one of the scenarios that we're working with. If I had more time, and we can go into this in the Q&A afterwards maybe, but there's so much to talk about in this, but I want to highlight that these are all scenarios based on models and different types of scenarios. So there's no, like you can't go there in 80 years and measure. But these are to give an idea of what's going to happen. Disasters are also interesting. The drought events are expected to increase in West Central Asia and Mediterranean. This is not really a surprise. And according to the report, dust storms are not really, there's limited evidence about dust storms, but they are linked to drought in the past, which makes it likely in the future. And luckily we have a new project at CMES that is working on dust storms, so hopefully in the future we will know a bit more about that. And then in terms of fire weather, which is weather that makes fire a higher risk, that will increase, at least in the Mediterranean. So I know this is a pretty dry summary of an even drier report, but this is what it says. Question is, what can we do with it? How will it affect people? And that report is upcoming, so I don't have the answers there, and the last report was like 7 years ago, so maybe it's not really relevant for this event. So I put together just a few points that might be relevant to look at based upon these changes that I've outlined. And the first one is water and agriculture. It's a very hot topic for the Middle East and has been for a long time. There's a claim that the Middle East ran out of water in the 1970s, quite some time ago. Obviously, there's still water in the Middle East, but what they mean by that is that the water, the renewable water resources have run out. So you're using your savings rather than what's actually coming in again into the system. One solution to that is, or has been, to import water, something that has been named virtual water. You grow food crops somewhere else, and there's water put into that, and then you import the food crops, and then you get virtual water that way. And that makes me think about the future and what will happen when there's a drought in these regions where you import water from. So maybe there will be virtual droughts in the future. Move on to health. Definitely a relevant topic. A study, I want to say recent, but it was a few years ago, but there was a study that found that extreme heat events might make parts of the region uninhabitable, especially the Gulf area, and where these livable thresholds would be exceeded more frequently than before. So this obviously impacts people, and especially old people, vulnerable people, and people who don't have access to air conditioning. I don't have much time left, but the last point I have is obviously migration and conflict, and there will be more about that, I think, in the future, or in the future today. for this event. There was a saying some time ago that the wars of the 21st century will be fought over water. We're maybe not really seeing that yet, but it might be relevant to remember that and see how things will pan out. There's a lot of talk about the Syrian conflict in light of this, and how an extreme drought preceded the Syrian uprising, and obviously that would be a lecture in itself. But there's a lot of things going on like that, where people are debating and talking about it. That could be good to keep an eye on. I have 15 seconds left, but I think I'm done, actually.
Okay, thank you. Wonderful. Thank you.